This is the Louie T Network.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Pop your collar Thursday here in the lab room. And it's Thursday. For most of you, that's a precursor to Friday. Getting closer toward the weekend, you're feeling good. For the rest of us, it's the start of our football weekend. Thursday night football, Carolina Panthers traveling to their divisional rivals in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to handle a little bit of family business. And look, I'm just going to spend all episode on these two teams. And you know how I like to do on Thursdays. I like to be crisp, sharp, straight to the point, and get out of here. I don't want to keep you here longer than you need to be. It's Thursday. You have things to do. So I'm just going to spit out what I have on my brain, and then we're going to get out of here. So let's break down this Thursday night matchup and then get to our touchdown, extra point, and skedaddle. So let's look at it from the standpoint of the 3-3 Carolina Panthers. And I just want to go over a quick synopsis of this team this year and all of the things that they've done so far in the season and where they need to be going. The Carolina Panthers came into this season with, I'd say, mid-level expectation. If you're a fan, you probably had expectations that were through the roof. If you're a lay fan or a fan of another team, the Panthers are a nice story. Hey, you probably will want to see Cam Newton play every now and again, but they're the Panthers. You just leave them over to their little corner of the NFC South and you just keep it moving. But this is a team that has established themselves as a dominant defense this season. There are about 5 or 6 defenses that you know every single week. You need to bring your lunch pail and your hard hat if you're playing against this team because defensively, they're going to bring it each and every single week. Cincinnati Bengals, you can toss them in that category. Kansas City Chiefs, go ahead and throw them in there. San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. Throw this Panthers team in there as well. They play defense. And when you can get after the quarterback, and if you look at all of those teams I just named, that's the one constant with all of those teams. They can get to your quarterback. And that's where it starts, up front. And the Panthers and their general manager, Dave Gettleman, understands that. And that was his initiative, his goal in the offseason. Let's shore up the front of this defensive line. We'll work from within, work our way out, and we'll become a better football team because our defensive line is stout. And I watched K'Wan Short last week, and I thought he was borderline dominant last week in the victory over the St. Louis Rams. And so you get guys to start playing good football on your defensive line when you already came into the season with 2 10-sack getters. And when you got double-digit sack getters on your football team, when you got 2, hell, people would kill for just 1. When you got 2, then it's almost like you're stealing. It's almost unfair. When you've got a tag team like the Panthers have and Charles Johnson and Greg Hardy, that's trouble. You're in trouble because that means you have to have 2 extremely good tackles to keep your quarterback upright or you're going to be in for a long day. And so defensively, this Carolina Panthers team is really good. And this team is predicated off of its defense. This team will only go as far as the offense takes them, however. Even though this defense is going to be the catalyst. Wherever they go, the Carolina Panthers will get there because of their defense. But how far they go will be determined by their offense because the defense will give them a shot each and every single week. I don't care who they're playing. They could be playing the Denver Broncos. This defense is going to give them a shot. Now, will they give them a shot for 4 quarters against a high-powered offense like the Denver Broncos? Who knows? But I know they'll give them a shot. The offense has to be able to keep pace. This offense, to me, is supplementary. They have to be able to supplement this defense, score points. When this defense creates turnovers, take those turnovers, take that good field position, go get points. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, get something. You want to put up touchdowns. You give this defense a lead and they can bend their ears back and get after the quarterback. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle because then they can become aggressive and come after your quarterback. So this Carolina Panthers team, And Ron Rivera started the year on the hot seat. You're like, hey man, if this Panthers team gets off to another one of these cruddy 1-6 starts like they had a season ago, he's going to get fired. Well, it didn't look good. I tell you what, they started the season 1-3, and you started to have your doubts about Ron Rivera as a coach. I know I did, because I didn't like him coming back in the first place. I didn't know if I wanted him fired or not. I didn't think he needed to be fired, but he needed to be on a short leash, because I felt like when you lose games close, you lose a game or two by 3 or 6 or 7, you say, it happens. It's the National Football League. You can't win them all. But when you consistently lose football games by 2, by 3, by 4, by 7, then you have to start looking a little deeper. And you start looking at the head coach. What could he have done to get you over the hump? When you lose a lot of close games, normally it's the coaching staff that loses you those ball games, because it's an adjustment here, maybe a flag that you throw out to challenge something there, maybe a 4th down attempt here or there that gets you over the top. Maybe you didn't need to settle for a field goal there on 4th and inches. Maybe you needed to push the envelope there and go for it. Some coaches are conservative, some are not. Either way, you've got to know which buttons to push at what time in the football game. And as a head coach, you know your team better than anyone else. You're supposed to be able to know when to push those buttons. And sometimes I doubt it if Ron Rivera knew when to push those buttons. But this year, since the 1-3 start, they've reeled off 2 in a row. They've looked good. And the reason why I feel like Ron Rivera has been a really solid coach, not a great coach, not a bad coach, he's been solid for this Carolina Panthers team, is because when you take over as a coach, normally guys have a specialty, whether you're an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or a special teams coach, and you get a head coaching gig, you specialize in something. And Ron Rivera came to this Panthers team as a defensive coordinator. That means he's defensive minded. And the one thing I can say about him is his defense is really good. So he's doing his job. Now, as a head coach, it's your job to make sure your whole team is good. And sometimes I thought Ron Rivera struggled with that. I wasn't sure if he was a great motivator or not. But I tell you this, his defense is top notch. And that means he's doing his job from a defensive standpoint. And I like that. If you're hired as a defensive coach, your defense better be good, or you're not doing your job. And his defense is top notch. So I respect Ron Rivera and what he's been able to accomplish in Carolina this season. He's started to get them back on the right track. I think the Panthers are starting to get confident. And that confidence is starting to ooze out. Steve Smith just came out this past week and said, hey, Cam Newton is starting to play chess now. He was playing checkers before. Now he's playing chess. That means guys are starting to buy in. They're starting to believe in Cam Newton and him being a leader. They're starting to buy in to this Panthers football team. They're starting to buy into each other. And once you start believing in each other, believing that we can win as a team, that we're good enough to play with anyone in the league. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to go out on the field and do it. Hey, you've got something building. And I think this Panthers team is starting to build something. That's why in this game against Tampa Bay, I want to see the Carolina Panthers destroy them. I want to see you come out and dominate from start to finish. This is a bad Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that you're playing against. They have talent. They're not talentless. They're a bad football team because they lack direction and they have a coach that doesn't have the pulse of this football team. They have a bad quarterback, or at least a young quarterback that doesn't know any better. Their best player isn't on the field, or one of their better players. I won't say their best because I feel like Vincent Jackson is their best player. But one of their better players in Doug Martin won't be playing in the game. Doug E. Thrash injured. So you need to go in and dominate this football game if you're Carolina. And I'll say this about Carolina, and then we'll go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Offensively, they've got weapons. And I already apologized because I told Carolina Panther fans that Ted Ginn Jr. wasn't going to help you except on special teams. I've been pleasantly surprised with what I've seen with Ted Ginn Jr. this season. He's been explosive. He's been dynamic. He's made plays with the football in his hands. And even when he hasn't had the football, probably even more impressive has been what he's done without the football. I'm still talking about that block he had down the field for Brandon LaFell against the Minnesota Vikings for that touchdown. He sprung him. He was the reason LaFell got down the sideline and scored that touchdown. And so Ted Ginn Jr. has been a huge addition to this football team. And you look at the defensive side of the football, Mike Mitchell, I think, has brought an attitude to that safety position. Remember, the Panthers were terrible at safety last season. He's brought an attitude and consistent play at the safety position. He's helped out on that side. So two key offseason acquisitions have come in and really helped change the fortunes of this Carolina Panthers football team. They're playing really good football, riding a 2-game winning streak. They need to go into Tampa Bay and set the tone early on in this football game, dominate from start to finish, and take care of the 0-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Speaking of the dysfunctional 0-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, let's talk about them a little bit. Greg Schiano is absolutely losing this team day by day by day, and people are piling on now. And I'll talk about that in the extra point a little bit later. But this Buccaneers team, the reason why this is so disappointing is because they're a talented football team, or at least they were coming into the season. You look at the defensive side of football, they're actually a good defensive team. You don't see this team getting blown out and giving up 48 points or giving up 37 points. This defense keeps it relatively close each and every week. Now, what the offense goes out and does, you never know what you're getting from this offensive group, because Greg Schiano has no idea what he's getting out of this offensive group. And their offensive coordinator struggles to call plays, I feel like. And this team is just a big ball of confusion right now. And that's part of the reason why they're not a good team. They lack direction. And Greg Schiano came into this season as a coach that felt like he knew what he needed to do to get this team over the hump. They were 7-9 last season, and he felt like, hey, I press a button here, I press a button there, and we can win 9 or 10 games and make it to the postseason this year. But again, when you're a tough military-type coach where you're inflexible and you don't bend or you don't give and you don't budge, and it's your way or the highway, when you're such a rigid disciplinary coach, guys, like I said, it's not 1985 anymore. You can't get away with that in the National Football League. You have to be able to relate to the players of today. In 1985, you could get in a guy's face. You could be a father figure to guys and really come down on them hard all the time, and they responded to that. That's how Bill Parcells got through the players. But this isn't that type of generation. Guys don't respond well to that anymore. If you want to come in and you want to lay down the iron fist and the hammer and let these guys know that I don't play, I'm here to get wins and I'm here to earn and command respect, that's fine. I'm all for that. But at some point, you have to ease off of the gas pedal and let these guys know that there's a lighter side and that, hey, I'm tough, I'm firm, but I'm fair. And I'm here because we're a family and we're looking to get it done as one. And he doesn't have that. There is none of that with Greg Schiano. There is his way, and then there's the door. Pick one. And when you do it that way, when you set that kind of standard and boundary, guys start to turn the other way. And it's unfortunate because, again, this team is talented. The Buccaneers, the Glazers, have finally started to open up their wallets. They went out and acquired guys in free agency the last 2 years. 2 years ago, it was Carl Nicks. It was Vincent Jackson. They went out, they spent money. They got guys that they thought could come in and help them win football games. Last season, they went out and they got Deshaun Golson. They went out and got guys that they thought could make a difference. And so they're building talent. They got Darrelle Revis as well. And so they made some power moves to give them a chance to battle in the NFC South division. And when you look at this roster, it's a talented group. Mike Williams, Vincent Jackson, Doug Martin. They've got talent at the skill positions. You look at the defensive side of football, Mark Barron, Deshaun Golson, Darrelle Revis, Gerald McCoy. Levante David is a stud. Again, I apologize to Levante David because I said I apologize for all of the people who don't get to see you ball out each and every Sunday, who don't know what you're doing in Tampa Bay because this is a bad football team. I apologize for those who don't know that Levante David is a monster. So this is a talented football team. They lack direction. And when you do not have direction, you're the 2-14 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You want me to tell you who was a good football team, who had a lot of talent, but lacked direction last year? The 2-14 Kansas City Chiefs. You see what they're doing now? They didn't change much. Sure, they went out and got a new general manager. Sure, they got a new coach. Sure, they have a new starting quarterback. But you know what they have now that they didn't have last year? Direction. Romeo Crennel, bless his heart, can coach up some defense. He is not a leader of men, however. He cannot coach a football team. That is fact. They lack direction, so you lose 14 games and only win 2. Doesn't help when your quarterback is Matt Castle and he's turning it over. But when you lack direction, you can't get it done. And that's what this Buccaneers team is doing right now. They're lacking in direction. And so you get the right guys in place and you start turning some things around. I'm telling you right now, this is not a bad football team. You don't need to blow this thing up. You just need to get the right guys in there. And I don't know if Greg Schiano is that guy or not. I don't think he is. But I tell you this much. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is talented enough to compete each and every Sunday and win football games. They do not have the direction to get them wins on Sundays. And that's the bottom line. And so I don't expect them to win this game. And Greg Schiano came out and said just a day ago or 2 days ago that we're going to win our fair share of games. No, you're not. No, you are not. And again, I don't know what your definition of winning your fair share of games are. Maybe your fair share of games is 2. Maybe it's 3. Maybe it's 4. It's not 6. It's not 7. You're not winning that many games this year. So at the end of the day, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are maybe a quarterback, maybe a new head coach, maybe a new general manager. Who knows? Maybe they're a couple of pieces away from turning this thing around. But I tell you what, Greg Schiano is not in the future plans of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. I don't think. With all of the dysfunctionality that's going on in Tampa Bay right now, I don't think he can be a part of what you're building for the future. So, you know what time it is. Let me tack on this quick extra point. So, I'm picking the Panthers to get it done in convincing fashion tonight, 27-13. Panthers should take care of business. I expect them to. They're the better team. They're playing with more confidence. They're riding a 2-game winning streak, looking to extend that to 3. Give me the Panthers tonight to take care of business, 27-13. Greg Schiano and this Buccaneers team is dysfunctional right now. And proof of that, guys are speaking out. And again, I love the anonymous quote. You know, there's nothing like an anonymous source. Those guys crack me up. But it's been reported that a former Bucks player has said that playing for Greg Schiano was like living in Cuba, which we all know it's essentially like communism. If you live in Cuba, you feel like you're trapped. You don't get a say-so. And that's basically what I've been trying to state to you all, is that with Greg Schiano, there isn't another way. It's either his way or no way. And you'll find that with most coaches in the league, yeah, that's the way they carry themselves. You either go and buy into what I'm saying or you got to go. But there's a way to go about it. And his way isn't beneficial to anyone but himself. And when you coach that way, like I said, we're in a new day and age where players, they grow up and they're playing Pop Warner football and they're in AAU and they're around people that are building up their confidence all their lives. So these guys come into the league and they've got huge egos. All of these guys were stars where they came from. Whether it's high school or college, they were the best players. At some point in their life, they were the best. And so when you come in, you can't demean them. They don't respond well to that. Again, in the 80s, early 90s, that was fine. You could be Bobby Knight. You could be Bill Parcells. You could get in a guy's face, demean him, belittle him in front of the team, and guys still respected you. It was a different time. People were brought up differently then. Now we're in a day and age where players are coddled all of their lives. So when you get in their face and you try to be hard and tough and rigid. They don't respond well to that once they get to the National Football League. Maybe in college you can get away with that. Again, they're still kids. They still can be reared and put into a mold. You know, you can mold them into what you want them to be. Once they get to the NFL, you can do a little bit of things as far as teaching them, but as far as adjusting them as a man, no, you can't do that at that point. Most guys, and there are some immature players that enter the National Football League, trust me, but you're dealing with veteran players, and this is a very veteran-laden roster in Tampa Bay. Guys aren't going for that. They're not going for that. So Greg Schiano has to figure this thing out before it's too late, and he's back in the college ranks. If he wants to remain a coach in the NFL of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's going to have to adopt that same mentality that one Tom Coughlin had to adopt, which is, hey, I've got to loosen up. I've got to show these players the other side of Greg Schiano. In his case, it was the other side of Tom Coughlin. I got to show these players that I'm not like this all the time, that I can relate, that I am a people person, that I do get it. So it's up to Greg Schiano. If he wants to remain a Buccaneers coach, he'll change and adopt a different philosophy. I'm not asking him to be a different coach altogether. I'm asking him to alter the way that he coaches. If he can't do that, he won't be the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2014. So that's going to do it for the Thursday edition of In the Lab Room. I kept you here way too long. I can get off on a tangent sometimes. I start talking and I just go off, and that's what happened today, and I apologize for that. But if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. See you on Friday. I'll be back to break this down as well as give you my Pick'em Weekly for week number 8. I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the football tonight. Come back and join me tomorrow. Have a good one.
In the Lab